Boom! It's the RG Cube. This review is a little late compared to normal because I was on vacation when this showed up at my house, and more importantly, there was some drama about the screen. Now, the majority of the video is going to focus on this beautiful white cube with these Skittle buttons. I love it. Kind of wanted the Famicom one. Maybe I'll buy myself a third cube and sell the other ones. I don't know. But what I won't sell is this purple one, because this is the first unit they shipped out. This came, second week of June maybe, and it was the first review unit. And almost every single person that got a review unit got one with terrible light bleed. And it's a shame too, because this one right here, I'll show you in a minute, this has probably the worst light bleed I have ever seen on a handheld. And I'm talking like $8.99 Famiclones with a screen that's held in place with duct tape. Like, this was bad. And I think mine in particular, for whatever reason, probably a variety of reasons, was worse than pretty much everyone I've seen. So let's turn this on, and let's, where's my button here? Let's turn off my studio lights. Ooh, spooky. Now that's pretty bad. Wait till I turn off the very last light. It is everywhere except this one little corner. Blow out the sensors. This one little corner seems okay, but it's the corner, it's along the sides, it's this L shapes on the top. It's just really bad. And I'm not going to shill for Anbernic, but when I was playing one-to-one games, it wasn't super noticeable, but anything with letterboxing, it's not good. When there's a game on, it kind of blows out the corners, but you can still see on the top anywhere there's letterboxing. And I mean, it's an extreme example because we have the brightness super high. Set it down to medium. It's not as bad, but still, this is not something you should be getting. Can you see my hand? Not something you should have to deal with for almost $200 handheld. And so the drama around this was Anbernic told us it was a pre-production issue, which is why they sent out the second units, the white one. The only problem is some of the early buyers reported that their screens were showing the light bleed. Maybe not as absurd as this, but it still had light bleed. I don't care about your birthday, Jenny. It seems like it's hit or miss. At first it was like almost 50-50. Now I think the ratio has gone down. I haven't seen as many people reporting it. And some resellers like GoGameGeek are reporting that their stock is part of the second wave of units and they don't have the light bleed. I think GoGameGeek said they were opening up boxes and checking, which I don't know if that's true, but if they are doing that, that's probably your best bet. So your mileage may vary buying it from a reseller where you're going to get that second wave. But if you did buy a first wave, if you are an early adopter and it's on its way, Anbernic has been offering replacement screens, which is neat, I guess, but it doesn't make it right? You shouldn't have to drop almost $200 and then turn around and have to do a pretty advanced repair. You gotta really take this apart to replace the entire front screen and the front cover of this. I mean, that's dumb. Anbernic needs to figure out a way to get a one-to-one swap for their one-to-one handheld. Huh? How do you like that? Get these lights back on. Oh, God. Now, a couple of guys in the scene have done teardowns, and there seem to be a couple of issues all impacting the screen all at once. So in some, the screws are a little too tight. So the screws are on the back of this, and that might be giving you that corner stuff. I think in Taki's video, he mentions this little bracket back here, and that's pressing really clearly right here. So even if you loosen the screws, you might have some bad light bleed right there. Still, other people, myself included, if I play a pretty high-end game on this for a while, it seems like it gets better. Now, that might be a placebo effect. That might be my eyes adjusting to it. But what some people think is maybe the adhesive's a little bit goofed up. And when you get this hot enough, playing PlayStation 2 or GameCube, the adhesive kind of reseals. Although if that were entirely true, then when I played this for 2 or 3 days in a row, it probably should have gotten better than what you just saw. So, what are you going to do? Regardless, none of that is ideal for your brand new $200-ish handheld, right? But like I said, if you don't want to wait and you want to minimize your chances of not getting one that doesn't have the light bleed, then I guess maybe go with GoGameGeek. They have the best price as I'm filming this. That could always change. And we've had a pretty good relationship with them in the past. They haven't hosed us over that I know of, and they haven't hosed over people that I know of. So that might be the way to go. But what do you think? Do you want me to try to film myself disassembling this and see if I could fix it? I'm bad at that stuff. Replacing buttons is probably where I top out, but I mean, I wouldn't want to sell this or give this to someone with that light bleed, so I guess there's no consequence if I screw it up too bad. Anyway, let me know in the comments if you want me to film myself breaking this, trying to repair it. So now that that issue's been addressed, let's move on to the actual device. And it's a shame that it launched with the jank screen on some of them, because I weirdly really like this, and I didn't think that I would. I wasn't a huge fan of the RG30. The one-to-one screen was kind of a gimmick for me. I mean, I liked it, but I was kind of ambivalent, but I don't know, this is really growing on me. Let's just get the comparisons out of the way. It's very similar size to the RGB30, except the Cube is obviously more powerful, but it's also much more ergonomic. It has these stacked triggers, which I really like. Triggers, by the way, have texture on them, which is neat. They're not as loud as the 556, but they are louder than they need to be. But this, to me, I don't know, it just feels more ergonomic. It has these little butt grips on the bottom with texture on them too. It feels way more ergonomic than the RGB30. But I will say, if you don't want to play anything above PlayStation 1, this is still a really solid option, because you can get them for 50 or 60 bucks. It is roughly the same size. The Cube has it beat in just all around feel, actual ergonomics. I think the buttons are a little better, D-pad's better, sticks are a wash. But yeah, another thing that I wanted to compare to is this has the same fan as the 405V, which, I don't know, kind of looks like a GameCube to me. But this is a big honkin' intake fan, and then the air comes out of the top so you can get that exquisite fragrance. So this does have RGB lighting, which I turned off, but I will turn it back on to show you. And it has a bunch of different modes. You can have a solid color, a breathing pattern, rainbow, marquee, chasing, gaming, and honestly, it is nice that you can lower the brightness and change the colors, but I honestly just turn them off. RGB sticks on this, to me, it makes it feel like it's like your 1995 Honda Civic and you're parked outside the video rental place, and it's a Friday night and you're showing everyone your undercarriage glow lights you put in yourself, and no one really likes them, but everyone's a little bit too nice just to call you out on it. I probably lost like 98% of you, but I bet you there's people pointing at the screen now like Leonardo DiCaprio. The D-pad is Sega style, and it's a hair loose, but otherwise it's super comfortable. I really like it. It's almost like the one on the Arc. It's a little bit more improved, I think, than the one on the Arc. The Arc, you can pop it off and it had some sticking issues, and this one feels a lot more floaty. The one on the Cube is really in there, and it's floaty, but I don't know, in a good way. It's definitely like an 8-way fighter stick, and it's going to fail a lot of precision tests. I don't know, I don't mind it. I think the positives of just the feel of the D-pad outweigh the fact that, yeah, it's going to be a little loose because it's designed to be loose. These sticks are more of the same. They're Switch-style sticks. They've been using these ones since, I think, the 405M, the Hall ones, and they don't get stick drift, but the range of motion on them is extremely limited. And if you've watched any video on any Anbernic device for the last year and a half, they have these sticks, and people have had the same problems. The range of motion is limited, and they also have a lot of cardinal snapping. Wait a minute. You can see here, there's a lot of cardinal snapping. It's easy to get to the outside. It's hard to go to a specific spot right where you want to. And there are some people that think Anbernic might be able to fix it with software. Gamma is working on this, trying to bring Gamma OS to this, and I think he's actually unlocked it, and he's working on it, and he might be able to fix the sensitivity a little bit, but it's just the way these sticks are. And honestly, the snapping on this, for me, isn't as big of an issue as it was on the 556, because I wasn't playing a ton of Android games on here, and I definitely wasn't streaming AAA stuff just because of the screen. You're probably not going to do it either, unless you really want to play Android games on here. I mean, more power to you, but it's not the absolute worst in GameCube or PlayStation 2 or anything underneath, because the sticks back then weren't hyper precise to begin with. You will run into issues with some, maybe some platformers or some first-person shooters that really need precision with your analog stick. You might be out of luck, Chuck, on those, but otherwise, to me, it's not that big of a deal on something that's not really set up to play modern FPS-type games. The triggers are analog, so you have a lot of precision, and you do have to configure them, but the software setup for it is a little bit easier than it was. So you can just have, I only want the triggers in NS mode and the buttons in Xbox mode, or vice versa. You can set different types. And this is a lot easier to use than the software that just came out on the 556, which shows Anbernic is actually, weirdly enough, making some strides in their Android build and their software development. I never thought I'd be saying that, but, you know, hats off if you're going to do it. The buttons are all decently sized and in the right places, but I did notice I got some right thumb fatigue. I had this same kind of fatigue when I first got my 3DS, and I don't know if it's just because the way the angle of my thumb or whatever, but it is something to be aware of. And with the 3DS, at least, my thumb adapted. I got a stronger thumb, but I don't know. It might be something you want to consider if you have some pre-existing hand issues. You got the arthritis, the inexorable march of time. It's been more than 10 years since I got my 3DS. We're all getting older. Something to keep in mind. All in all, this is a pretty solid and compact little one-to-one handheld, and I really can't think of much they could have improved outside of just that light bleed from the initial run. Maybe put little knobs down here to have more to hold on to, but I don't know. It's really ergonomic. I really like it, and I think outside of that screen issue, it's really, really comfortable and really well-made handheld, which is weird to say considering so many people had some initial problems. Now for the rest of the video, we're going to focus on how to get the most out of this 1:1 aspect ratio. Right off the bat, I'm not going to mess with PSP, I'm not going to mess with Switch, and I'm not going to mess with streaming or really any widescreen content in this video. Stubbs already covered a lot of it in his first look, and I know it can be done, and I know there are ways to kind of, fudge the numbers a little bit, but for me, it's just going to be suboptimal. Even on the Android stuff, and some of it does scale 1:1, it's just suboptimal to me. If you want to do widescreen gaming, if you want to stream, whatever, I would say, heck, stick with the 556, the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro, or the Odin 2 if you're nasty. So just right off the bat, there are going to be 3 main categories for your configurations. There's going to be 1:1 games, like Game Boy Color, Game Boy, Game Gear, Neo Geo Pocket, Neo Geo Color, etc. Just stick to 1:1. You're already done. You might be able to go in and use the 10:9 ratio or whatever the default is, and maybe that looks a little better, but I think when you're close to 1:1 already, just go ahead and stretch it. Get the most out of that real estate. And I know these screens aren't exactly a 1:1 ratio. It's 10:9, or it's 20:19, or whatever. It's close enough, right? It's a 4-inch screen, 2 feet from your face. It's close enough. And I know, it's a 3.95-inch screen, but I said it was 4. I'm not that precise. Have you seen my bar top arcade video? I'm lucky I didn't lose a finger. So for all of these systems, you're going to want to go into the Retroarch menu, and you're going to want to go over to this little gear. Then you want to go to video, and you want to go to scaling. This is going to be a little different for everything. So these 1:1 games, I have it set to integer scale, and I have it set to 1:1. You can, if you want, use this 1:1 PAR, which gives you the actual screen resolution, which is 10:9. So we're going to try that. And you see, you lose some real estate, but what do you gain? Some black bars. I would rather just have it set to 1:1 and take up the full screen. Ooh, that's got to be a double. How do I go? Oh, I guess he just runs there. Whatever. So once you've found the aspect ratio that fits for you, you might think you go out and you go over to configuration file and save current configuration. And you could do that, but then everything's going to be scaled 1:1. What I do is I go into quick menu and I go into overrides, and then I save content directory overrides. So what this does is, as it says, you save an override configuration file which will apply for all content loaded from the same directory as the current file. It'll take preference over the main configuration. So this is going to set everything in that Game Boy folder where all your Game Boy games are to be 1:1 or 10:9 or whatever you pick. Save. For 4:3 games, I really like to go in here and change it to 8:7. You can also take advantage of that 1:1 PAR, which automatically sets it to 8:7, but you can go in here and set 8:7 yourself. I have this saved for all my 4:3 games, like Super Nintendo, Genesis, all the way up to, right before you get to GameCube or Wii or PS2. For GameCube, Wii, and PS2, you can force it to go 4:3, but you can't force it to go 8:7. So 4:3 is the best you're going to get for those systems. And honestly, you're still not losing a ton of real estate. Now for 4:3 stuff, you can set it to integer scale and then tell it to overscale, and it looks pretty good, except it cuts off a couple pixels on the edge. And I don't know, that makes me a little bit anxious. Some of these games, I feel like I might need those side pixels. So let's bounce back to non-integer scale, not overscaled. And now you can see that, yeah, I still have a giant screen, but I see the sides of those menu bars. So if it's not that big of a deal for you, you can maximize it by going integer scale and then overscaling it, but I'm okay with 8x7. Now for Dolphin and Wii games, you're going to want to go into your Dolphin emulator, go into configuration. For Wii particular, you're going to want to make sure that widescreen is not checked. You want to force it to be 4x3. There are going to be a few games where it says, F you, I won't do what you tell me, but it works for a lot of them. And then you're going to back out, and for graphics settings, you are going to force 4x3. You can do stretch to window. It's not great. Let's show that off here. Here's stretch to window. Any game with a ton of text, or where you're expecting someone to look a very particular way, it's going to look a little bit off. But it's not the end of the world. It's still very playable. It's just not for me. I don't mind black bars if it keeps every single person from looking like Slender Man. That's just me. And again, just on a GameCube game like this, it shows you that top and bottom letterboxing are always going to be there if you're going to play 4x3. You jerk. So it just makes that light bleed more apparent and just not great. So for PS2, you're going to want to do the same thing. You go into graphics, and then you tell it, we'll just force it 4x3. You can do that auto standard, but 4x3 just kind of keeps everything uniform. And you see here, you lose a little bit on the top and bottom, but it's not the end of the world. If you do try to stretch it to the whole screen, wait a minute, it looks a little funny. I'll just say that. If you're okay with that weird stretched out stuff, that's fine. But I'd rather, just same as GameCube, rather have a little bit of letterboxing. I don't know, I'm kind of used to it. I used to watch movies on TV and they'd be letterboxed. Maybe that's just, if you were an 80s or 90s kid, you're just used to it. And this might be a placebo. This might be my brain, like, making things up. But it feels like you get a hair more speed in these games compared to the 556. Maybe because it's a smaller screen, you're throwing more pixels out. I don't know. I could 100% be wrong on that. But that's how you do 4x3 on pretty much all your systems in Retroarch and these standalone guys. So for some arcade games, particularly MAME games, they were actually built to be slightly vertical. So if you go into your settings and you go to video and then scaling, you'll see that 1-to-1 PAR, by default, sets it to 7x8. And then you're not reading that right. It's not 8x7, it's 7x8. So it's a little bit taller than it is wider. And some of these arcade boxes were designed for that. Also, this little analog stick, even though it might have some snapping issues, it's really good for these arcade games. Whee! Get 'em. Finishing up here with Game Boy Advance, you're going to want to go over to video, scaling, and for these, set it to 3x2. You're going to lose some top and bottom, but this is going to be pixel perfect 3x2. I'll go over shaders next, but specifically for these Game Boy Advance ones, I like to go in and use, it's under handheld, and any of these like dot or the LCD ones, I like any of the LCD grids, although you will get your colors warped a little bit because these are designed to replicate what the colors actually look like without a backlight. But LCD grid or LCD 1X, I actually like LCD 3X. It's an LCD scanline kind of filter, but it's at 3X. And since your integer scaling is 3 times what the Game Boy Advance could have made, that's a really, really good fit. I'm just going to save this for my content directory. Whee! There's a lot of letterboxing, but you do have a really, really sharp 3 times upscaled picture, and I think it's a pretty decent solution for Game Boy Advance. Now, it wouldn't be my dedicated Game Boy Advance machine. I would do something like the TrimUR Smart Pro or 351p or something like that, but it's pretty good. So one of the cool things about these 1x1 games is, because this is so powerful, you can really go crazy with shaders. I'm using that same LCD 3X shader that I was using for Game Boy Advance. Danny Glover, are you going to be okay? Crap. Need Riggs to come help him. It's a different movie, Zoo. So for really any 4x3 system you're going to be playing in Retroarch, you can go in, you can pick some of these ones that have the fake lot. Is it lots? Lotties? Whatever. It makes it look like a CRT. See how it's kind of curved at the edge? Uh-oh. Hey, thought I was going to get away. Some of these 16-bit systems, that CRT shader and some other stuff you might apply to it, boy, that looks good, especially at that 8x7 ratio. I mean, even PlayStation games look amazing on here. Like, to me, this is what I remember PlayStation games looking like. That slight little curve from the monitor, being real vibrant. I don't know. I just really like it. On a system like this, you can run it at 8x7, and you do have enough overhead to pull off a lot of these cool effects. Even on your higher end stuff like Dreamcast, you can run it through Retroarch with all those same filters and aspect ratios set up. Why is this pirate lady fighting a... Oh, geez! That mummy's not screwing around. This also shows off that D-pad. Can do all sorts of energy-type button spam moves. Easily. Whee! So I did have to use Yaba Shin or whatever it's called, the standalone Saturn emulator that came with the system. But you can set it to either full screen, which I had on there now, or 4x3. 4x3 on here, for whatever reason, takes the bottom off. So for this, it is one that I will set full screen and just kind of deal with it. So if you do want to play 4x3 Saturn games on here, you might need to tinker with the emulator a little bit more. Get dunked on, birdie. Arcade games on here, I didn't think I would like them as much as I do. You can do 8x7, but this 7x8, I don't know, something about it. Something about it just, it's nostalgic. It gives that that Pizza Hut or a sketchy old building by the mall sort of feel. I don't play a lot of arcade stuff outside of Game of the Week. Rapid throws them in there all the time. But sometimes it's just nice to go back to a time, at least mentally, where you had a couple of quarters and you were single-handedly trying to end the entire Pacific War while you were waiting for that lady to bring your pizza and your giant pitcher of soda to your table. They had those lampshades and everything. And you didn't even have to pay because you read all your books for Book It. Man, I miss 1990s Pizza Hut. They ought to open up Pizza Hut Classics. I'd go, especially if they had 7x8 arcade machines and I could play 1943. Phew, get dunked on. Pico 8 on here also looks really, really good. Now, it's not 100% because there's, as of right now, I'm pretty sure there's no native Android Pico 8 emulator. But the fake 08 core in Retroarch, which, by the way, made by beloved Discord member Jay to the Bell. How you doing, Jay to the Bell? It works pretty good. And at a 1-to-1 screen ratio, you use the entire screen. If Pico 8's your thing, this is probably a little bit overpriced for a Pico 8 only machine, but it does the job really well. Look, 45 seconds. It's my best one yet. Let's get those TIE fighters. Even though you're not using the whole screen, because you do have that letterboxing, this handheld is compact enough that it just, I don't know, GameCube games on here, to me, feel really special. It feels like I'm holding a little miniature portable GameCube, and I like that. Wow! And the power is such that, not on Rogue Squadron 2, God knows that, but on a lot of other games you can do 2x. Rogue Squadron here runs at 1x, and it actually runs pretty well. You're going to have some stuttering and stuff, and Rogue Squadron is just really hard to emulate, but it runs okay at 1x on here, and a lot of other games are going to run at 2x. There's not too many GameCube games you're not going to be able to play on here. Watch your 6, Zoo! Now, 2x on a lot of GameCube games is only going to be possible if you are using the Dolphin from the Play Store. And this is very important because I screwed it up. Make sure you don't have the beta one selected, because the beta one chugs on here. I took myself out of the beta. I installed the one that comes just straight off the Play Store, and a lot of stuff will play at 2x, and pretty much everything will play at least 1x. So it is going to be important to make sure you're on the correct version of Dolphin, which, let's see here. I'm on Dolphin 5.0-21744, so that's a good one. I'm also using Vulkan as my backend for most of these. If you do have issues, you can always switch to OpenGL, and you can do that for system-specific things. So let's say for Star Fox Assault, game settings, Star Fox Assault, I only want it to start in GL, and we're going to say, heck, run it at 2x, and we're going to call it a day. And when I open up Star Fox Assault, you see that new stuff on the top? That means I'm using the OpenGL, and it works. And so now it's always going to open up an OpenGL. So if you do run across a game where it doesn't perform well with Vulkan, you can always switch and save like that. Now this does also ship with Dolphin MMJR2, and you're probably not going to need to use it, but it is there if you have to hot swap something that's not playing right in the regular Dolphin. Performance on PlayStation 2 is pretty good. It's not as good as GameCube. You're going to want to use Vulkan for all these, and you're probably going to hover somewhere in between 1 and 2x resolution. Now what's good about PlayStation 2 is you can go into this emulator, and you can do fractional. So you can do sub 1, you can do 1, 1.5. So if 2 is not cutting it, try 1.75, then 1.5, maybe get all the way down to 1. You can also go into system and underclock your cycle rate or your cycle skip, but you don't have to do that for too many of these outside of really, really hard to emulate ones. Whee! Jeez! So SXX3 didn't want to run at 2x. I set it to 1x and it's running fine. Ah! You're off the trail, Zoo! So Burnout, we're running at 1x. Let's see if we can get it to 2. Yeah. So it really depends on the kind of game you're playing. I would say probably 80% of the PlayStation 2 library is playable at least 1x. There's other ones you're going to have to squeeze a little bit more performance out of. And then there's going to be stuff that's probably just somewhere in the middle between 1 and 2. Crap. I died. Jeez Louise, this guy's slow. I guess he's powerful, though. And we were running that at 2x native. Didn't dip that much that I could tell. Ugh. So what do you guys think of these GameCube and PS2 games? Should I try to do some sort of showcase? We already did one with the 556, and performance should be about the same, but I guess let me know in the comments. Another area where the Cube weirdly shines for me, and it was kind of unexpected, is DS and 3DS, which we have on the screen here, Strange Journey. This version of Citra comes with a layout that's already paired, and it matches the screen really well. The only downside is it's locked down. You can't change it. If you want to tweak this, you're going to have to sideload a different version of Citra or Lime or whatever. But honestly, for me, on a one-to-one screen, this is pretty decent for default.
Look at him run, Grandpapa!
Yeah, speaking of looking at things run, this thing will run at 2x resolution for a wide range of games. The only thing that it really can't handle, same with the 556, were games like Xenoblade Chronicles, which struggles on the chipset and honestly struggles on a lot of chipsets. Otherwise, games like Fire Emblem Gaiden or a lot of 3DS games are going to run really great on here at 2x.
It's all in the wrist.
You got that right. And for me, the way this screen is set up for me, not bad at all. I could live with this. Outside of having something with 2 screens, this is a pretty good setup for a compact 3DS emulation system. Now, regular DS on here is pretty good too. The drastic that it comes with isn't as locked down, and you can swap screens around. I have it where I press the right trigger stick down and it swaps screens. Oh no! Is that lady okay? Edgeworth, what did you do? So these Game Boy 2.0 games where you're not really using the second screen, you get almost the entire screen on here with your DS on top, and it looks really, really good. Let's try to play a different game to show that off. Oh geez, that guy's got a gun. So a Game Boy 2.0 game like Advance Wars Dual Screens, or Dual Strike I think it's called, you're using almost your entire screen, and everything on here is just very, very vibrant and pretty. And with this bezel, you barely even notice the letterboxing. These poor SOBs never had a chance. Both 3DS and regular DS do have some compromises just because of the size of the screen, but I don't know. DS gameplay is actually growing on me with this large 1x1 screen. I really like the way 3DS is laid out, and then regular DS with the ability to swap screens and this bezel, I don't know, it's really growing on me. I like it. I think the only thing better is either a super expensive, thanks Rob, Duo rig, or original hardware. Get out of here, Stubbs, because it's time for What Did We Learn? Well, we learned that if I got this 2 weeks ago and I was doing a first look, I would rank the RG Cube as a hesitant, it's okay kind of option if you're looking for a more compact machine that caps out at PS2 and GameCube. However, since all of the initial screen drama, things have seemed to calm down a little bit. Only a handful of people so far have reported the issue on retail units, and those were all, just by necessity, early adopters. It doesn't excuse the issue at all. And if you lose to Screen Lottery, Ambernick directly or their AliExpress store should really make it right. Not just a new screen requiring extensive DIY time. Let's see a full exchange. Come on, Ambernick. I know you can do it. The good thing is that it does seem to be limited to the first run. Ambernick was able to consistently get all of the usual suspects, me, Russ, Gary, Stubbs, Rob, Ban, everyone. They were able to get them working units without light bleed. So they've demonstrated that they're able to fix it. They just need to show that your QA is actually catching bad ones before I give this a higher ranking. Now you can avoid this whole thing by waiting for it to show up on Amazon at the cost of time and extra money. There's that Amazon tax, but you can return it immediately if you need to. Or you can maybe try to get one from Go Game Geek, who has assured us they only have later batches in stock. If they're wrong, if someone screwed up, their return policy is better than straight Ambernick, but it's all up to you. I will say though, a working RG Cube is quite a sight to behold. On paper, it seems kind of stupid and mishmashy and like, why would you do this? But it just works in real life. I didn't have a lot of high expectations for this sucker, but it works. The screen is good for all of your retro aspect ratios, and you get a condensed experience without it feeling cramped, if that makes sense. You're on it, right? You're bearing down on it, but you're not cramped. The screen is impressive. It gets very dim. You barely see it. It also gets very bright. The ergonomics are really, really good outside of some potential initial, maybe, right thumb soreness for some of you. And all in all, it's a pretty slick little package for $150 to $200. If you would have dropped this in my lap 2 or 3 years ago, it would have seemed straight up like dark magic. That's how fast our little scene is progressing. And one of the cool things I like about how the scene is progressing is that Anbernic and companies like Powkiddy, they really seem like they're exploring the space. For the most part, you're not just getting a rectangle or a rectangle that's slightly curved, or maybe a rectangle that's even longer than the previous rectangle. You're getting these maybe one-off, maybe experimental kind of builds, or you're trying to make something condensed and pocketable. Or maybe you're replicating an old handheld, or you're converting an old controller into a handheld. I really, really like the idea of that. And I'm glad that Anbernic and Powkiddy, and maybe others moving forward, are going in that direction. I'm still looking for a dual screen device, and I'm still looking for an N64 device with a superfluous little handle in the middle. But I do like the way this is going. Honestly, I feel like we're getting closer and closer where performance on an Android chip isn't going to be the limiting factor. Like, you're going to be able to play a lot of PlayStation 2, and you're going to be able to play Switch or 3DS or any of the higher end stuff. It's going to be form factor at that point, and I think Anbernic and Powkiddy and some of these more experimental companies, they probably have a leg up on some of the more traditional or conventional companies. So, good job, Anbernic. Bad job with the screen, but good job kind of making a weird 1x1. Obviously, you've cribbed a little bit from Powkiddy, but that's okay, because Powkiddy cribs from other people as well. So if you like the Cube, if you're thinking about getting one, maybe wait for Amazon, try Go Game Geek, or heck, play the Anbernic Lottery. If you like the video, like and subscribe and do all that jazz. I'd really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one. I'm getting dangerously close to my 100th video. Does anyone have any suggestions for what I should do? Should I do a video where I review something that's not even remotely video game related? Like Zoo's Dyson stick vacuum cleaner review. I'll probably get 12 views and it'll tank the channel, but heck, let me know. Remember to take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of your handhelds. You got a horse to ride, horse to eat. Let's quit horsing around and finish this video.